As we enter the 4th month of the takeover saga, Steve Bruce and Alan Shearer have ramped up the pressure on the Premier League following Newcastle United's 2-0 defeat to Manchester City in the FA Cup. Now, the less said about the actual football that occurred at St James's Park on Sunday evening, the better. But in a nutshell, I do believe Steve Bruce was wrong to set up in the manner that he did in such a big game. However, I do appreciate we were playing Man City, one of the best teams in Europe, and going all out would have been suicidal. But I do believe there was a balance to be had, and actually in the second half when we did go with 4 at the back, we did do a bit better, and I kind of wish we'd started the game that way. But there's no shame losing 2-0 to Man City, but there is rightly some criticism of our approach to the match, and Steve Bruce must bear some responsibility for that. Anyway, let's focus on what Alan Shearer and Steve Bruce had to say before and after the match, because to be honest, they were much more interesting than what occurred during the match itself. It is frankly ridiculous that we're now entering week 13 of the takeover saga. The Premier League and Richard Masters really need to have a good look at themselves over their handling of all this. For a process that's meant to take up to 6 weeks, we still haven't appeared to have sorted the owners and directors test stage yet. How many times have we heard it'll be next week? I believe that started at the beginning of May and now we're at the end of June. We know there have been issues. I've talked about this 100 times. We know that the worldwide situation we find ourselves in is unique, unprecedented even. And we know, as we've talked about many, many times, that the issue of piracy in the Middle East region, specifically Saudi Arabia, is at the forefront of this delay. And yet, there's still not even an inkling that this will be resolved anytime soon. I know non-disclosure agreements are in play here, but it still remains deeply frustrating that it is taking this long. And to have the Newcastle United manager, Steve Bruce, come out after an FA Cup quarter-final and say he believes the Premier League are stalling and that he wants clarity, really does show the levels of incompetence being served up by the Premier League. Was Steve Bruce speaking on behalf of Ashley? It's possible that Ashley himself is so annoyed at this entire process that he is now trying to exert some pressure himself through Steve Bruce. Or it could be that Steve Bruce is genuinely really fed up with it too. However, I think Steve Bruce has been in the game far too long to make a comment that was as pointed and direct as the one he made off his own back. To call out the Premier League isn't something managers really do too often, but there are good reasons why Bruce may be upset. The Premier League season is due to finish in about 3 weeks' time. And as we know, due to the strange way we're finishing the 19-20 season, the off-season is going to be extremely short, so that next season can begin in September. Basically, a 3-month gap for clubs to prepare is being reduced to about half of that. Now, all clubs, including Newcastle, are beginning that planning now. But how can Newcastle plan properly when the club is a rudderless ship caught up in a storm? Who knows where it's going to end up crashing? We're at a crucial stage in the calendar, and not having the new owners inside St James's Park to work out their plan is a real concern. Club legend Alan Shearer said during the BBC's broadcast of the FA Cup match that the club were in limbo. And of course he's right. We all know the importance of good recruiting and negotiating early with your top targets, but how can that be happening if the new owners aren't actually in place? And do you trust Ashley and Charnley to be doing the right thing in terms of recruitment? We're now genuinely at a point where this could have a knock-on effect over how we perform next season. And as I've said, let's be honest here, recruitment is not really the club's strong point at the moment, and it hasn't been for several years. We always struggle to get deals over the line, and we generally shop in the bargain basement anyway. And when Ashley does decide to spend big, well, if this takeover doesn't pass soon, then I'll be really concerned about what direction the club's going to take next season. And to be honest, it doesn't bear thinking about. Hopefully the comments from both Bruce and Shearer will apply some external pressure on the Premier League and we'll see some movement this week. But I really don't want to hear it'll be next week again. It's time for the Premier League to sort this out once and for all and put everybody out of our misery one way or the other. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you've enjoyed it, please hit the like button and consider subscribing, and I will see you really soon for another video.